Hello, Marc Brunet with CubeBrush.com. In this chapter, we're going to be covering the topic of sketches. So we're going to be doing a total of 3 different sketches, and those are meant to be sort of a brain dump of ideas. I'm just going with 3 because I'm spending a little bit more time, but there's really no rules. You could be spending 5 minutes per character and going with bigger brush strokes and something a little bit more abstract and create like 20 of them. But in this case, I just wanted to make sure my design were just a little bit more polished. So I'm gonna be spending around, I would say, 15 minutes on each if I remember. So I'm gonna start before I do any of those with a sort of a naked body. So a character that I'm gonna use for the 3 of them, because they're all gonna be, in my mind at least, I don't plan to have them being different in terms of body types. It's all going to be the same, sort of like a heroic / average female body type. So I'm just building the skeleton here. As you can see, always use guides for the shoulders, and so to measure the length. Don't draw arms, in too much details right off the bat. Make sure you have your proportions down first, so that the length, the length of things are, proper before you spend a little bit more time on it. But for me, since I want this character to be, well, obviously dressed up in armor, this is going to be pretty good. So I'm not going to spend that much more time on it. I'm just fixing the final sort of size of the head so that it looks like like a character in proportions. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to duplicate it 2 times, so to have my other bases for my characters. Going into this, I really don't have any idea what I want to do, or at least I don't have a precise idea. I know, like we've seen in the previous chapter, that I want her to be a DPS character, so an attacker type of character. But that's as far as it goes. So she's a female. She needs a cool frontal silhouette, and she's she's a damage dealer, which is it's not that much to go off of, but at least it gives me a direction. So I want her to look aggressive. I want her to probably not have too much armor, so that she can move around faster and be a little bit more mobile. But at the same time, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna start with a bunch of different shapes. It's really good when you do this step, to not dial into the details too much. So keep it really rough. Keep it. You're supposed to erase a lot here, and if you get rid of one of the designs, because it will happen. In this case, I'm only gonna pick one in the end. Don't feel too bad about it, because you've invested so much time in it. So those are meant to be quick. And a good idea to try when you're doing these is to squint, because this will otherwise you get lost in the lines and in the messiness of all the brush strokes a little bit too easily. So pretty much the entire time while I was doing this, I was squinting my eyes. And so at this point, I kind of had an idea of what the first one was going to look like, at least. So I wanted her to be like top heavy. And I always try to find a reason for things. So why would she be top heavy? Probably because she has I don't know, in my mind, she has a sort of a battery pack in her back, and that is used to power up probably like 2 big weapons that would be connected to it. And it's always better to carry around something that is sort of at the top of your body, just like a huge backpack. You don't want to carry it too far off from your center of gravity, because then you'll have trouble walking around. So this is what I was thinking with this. I'm not 100% sure that I like this design at this point, but it's always good to keep an open mind. And in the worst case scenario, even if I don't end up choosing this one, which I won't, but you know, at that point when I was doing it, I had no idea. Even if I don't end up using it as a whole, there might still be elements in there that I find could be useful for the other characters. So, you know, never give up if it doesn't work. If it really doesn't work, then you can skip to the other one. But it's always good to just, you know, to power through it and see if something good's gonna happen. So I am not satisfied with the silhouette of this one, because this is always something in the back of my mind, because like we said, it, you know, in the previous chapter, this is a first-person shooter game, and this is supposed to have an interesting silhouette when you look at it from the front. And to me, it doesn't. It just looks like a, you know, like a wide buff dude at this point. So I'm trying to come up with cool curves, you know, something to make it a little bit more interesting. Always a good idea also to flip, like you saw me do. Flip your characters horizontally so you can see, you know, if something seems off. It's kind of like taking a break from your character and going back after a little bit, and then suddenly you see all your mistakes. Doing the if you just mirror it like I did horizontally, you see all those mistakes right off the bat, so you don't have to take a break, which is a good idea. Like I said, this one I'm taking probably too much time on this one as opposed to the other two, and it's always the same thing when you start something like this that requires a lot of brain power. Not really, but when it requires a lot of concentration and a lot of creativity, the first one is always a little bit harder to get into, and just something I found that I don't know, it's always like that. So the first one, normally I spend just a little bit more time on it, and I just, you know, I get just to warm up basically. And sometimes it's the one I end up choosing, sometimes it's not. It has nothing to do with the actual ideas, it's just to start off the process takes a little bit longer. And it's also completely fine. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do it here, but it's also, you know, completely fine to, if you don't have any more ideas for one of your character, you can jump to the other one, and then always, you know, there's always the possibility of going back to it at some point. So, you know, you jump on the second one, you start doing it, and then if you get an idea while you're doing it, then you can come back to the first one, finish it up, and then move on. So my idea for this one is that, like I said, she's gonna have like two big guns that are powered by her armor suit, which would contain some sort of energy cell, and that to me already was starting to make a little bit, you know, a better silhouette, so something a little bit more interesting. And while you're doing these, don't think about what's coming next. So don't think about, you know, the 3D artist that's going to have to model this. This is the step where you don't worry about anything. You just have to sort of open your mind and just draw cool stuff, and hopefully you find something else. And this can always be tweaked later on. So don't sort of like cloud your brain or your imagination with you know, useless things. It's everything goes on here. So the first one's pretty much done now at this point. I mean, I wasn't sure how it would end up, and I had pretty low hopes for this one, but it ended up really being really cool. And it's important when you do these, especially if you have if you don't do as many, so if you're spending a little bit more time on each of them like I'm doing right now, that you're really satisfied with each of them. And these, you know, when you're really satisfied with, let's say at the end I'm like super happy with the 3 of them, then it makes the final choice harder, and that means that you're probably gonna have a good design. If you end up doing spending too little on each of them, and let's say you're doing like 15 of them or 20 of them, and you spend you know, like 5 minutes on each max, it's a lot easier to just be like, whatever, you know, this one's crap, I'll just jump onto the other one, and then in the end you end up with just still like 2 or 3 that you end up liking, and that doesn't really help you any. The idea is to have a variety of good ideas that you can pick from, and then you pick the best one. It's not to have a bunch of crap ideas and then pick the only one or two that are good. For the second character, I'm thinking kind of like the opposite of the first one. So it's always it's like I was saying, you know, like you can go back from the first one, and then if you run out of ideas, you can always start on the second one and come back. And in this case, I'm doing kind of like well, not the opposite, but I'm still inspiring myself from the first one. So the first one was supposed to be top heavy, but it ended up being, I don't know, looking like if you look at it from a distance, almost it looks like an egg or like a lemon shape, like an oval shape. And I kind of like that for the first one. So I'm trying something complete opposite for the second one. So the second one's gonna be instead of being like all contained as a silhouette, it's going to be the opposite. So it's gonna be like more like an X. So I'm thinking of having two big guns on the back that she can just sort of grab and pull down to her shoulder level and then start shooting. And when she let them go, then they just, you know, retract and fold back. And you can see also I'm not spending too much time on the faces or the hairstyle or whatever. And this one I'm giving her some sort of cool hair, but this is really not the important part right now. The important part is the silhouette, and everything that affects the silhouette should be number one. While I'm doing these, you can also I would recommend that you always look back at your reference sheets to give you ideas for different shapes, and especially if you're working on a part of your character that has, I don't know, mechanical design or something that you want to be a little bit more like an insect kind of look, with cool like organic armor plates. Always look back to the reference sheets, and you can always inspire yourself from that. Doesn't mean that you copy, or you can even copy at this stage. It really doesn't matter. It's just to get a bunch of ideas down on paper so that you're happy with something, happy with the silhouette, and then after that, in the next chapters, we're gonna dial into the design a little bit more, or a lot more actually. But yeah, like use anything that you can think of for inspiration. In this case, everything, as I said, everything goes. You can notice also that I'm just working off of the background layer. This is not a mistake. It's just for this step, since it's supposed to be rough and quick, it doesn't really matter if I keep my scene clean too much. The only way, I wouldn't have many layers basically to do these, so they would still be on a single layer. There's no point in having them on separate layers. If you don't like something, you just erase or just draw over it. And when we move on to the next steps, then we're gonna have layers. But in this case, it's really not important. So another challenge here, something to keep in mind while you're doing these, something that I was keeping in mind is they're female characters after all, so they need some sort of femininity. Oh boy, they need to look feminine is what I'm trying to say. And this can be a little bit challenging when you have a lot of armor on top of your characters. But it's also a cool challenge to tackle. So always trying to give a little bit of like a feminine touch to the armor parts. Add a little bit of fashion elements maybe. So look at high fashion and try to incorporate a couple things here and there. Yeah, it's always a fun thing. So that's why I like to do female characters, because they're really challenging. There's always a cool contrast that's hard to maintain, but a lot of fun to create. And so now I'm jumping at the last one. So the first two, I'm pretty happy with them. I wouldn't I'm in a good spot, and I know it because I wouldn't mind, elaborating on the first two. So I'd be happy to start off of them and then create, my final design. So that's always a good spot to be in when you're happy with your designs, and that's actually the kind of goal that we were looking for in this case. The first two have been a little bit bulky on the armor side, so I'm trying something a little bit more alien-like with the last one. So something a little bit more organic, maybe a little bit more insectoids. So like, I don't know, like for this one I was looking at a lot at scorpion images, scorpion photos, and praying mantis, and how their body parts are kind of reacting to light and how they sort of transition into one another. I thought it was really cool. And yeah, the tough part with this is always to come up with things that you've never really seen before. So there's no point in doing concept design if you're just recreating stuff that has been done before. That's not concepting. That's just either like copying or just illustrating. What we're trying to do here is come up with shapes and silhouettes and patterns or whatever it is that have never been done before, which is really, really hard. And I'm not saying that everything on these characters have never been done before. That's not the case at all, probably. But at least this is what you need to keep in mind. So you shouldn't look at this and be like, oh, this is that character or that character. It should be, oh, this is a cool character, and it could be a cool character in a game. And so as you can see, as I was progressing on the first and second and then the third one, it's taking me less and less time. And that's like at the third one, I was pretty much in like a good vibe to be doing these. I was spending a lot less time on them, and I was achieving a lot more result with a lot fewer brush strokes, which would have been a good sign to keep going. But after I was done with the third one, I was actually really happy with it. So this is what I sort of chose to go with for the rest of the lesson. So number 3 it is. So you can see I have all my different characters here. And what I'm using now is the Liquify tool. So you go filter and liquify, and you can always move things around, and it maintains the sharpness of your lines, which is really, really useful. I mean, I use this tool all the time. So as opposed to just having to erase and draw again, you can just use that tool. It's awesome. So there it is, guys. See you guys in the next chapter.